Hello, I'm Christine Rudolph from the Ray White Group, and welcome to our next series in Leading Ladies, where today we meet an incredible woman, Robyn Hoare, who has shattered glass ceilings from a very early age.
Not normally allow myself to be so vulnerable, so here we go.
She is a mother of 7, which is absolutely incredible.
I was brought up on Sydney Harbour. Behind closed doors of our beautiful home at Rose Bay was hell. There was 6 million missing in the business, and we were the last men standing.
She has championed some of the biggest causes in Australia, including raising awareness of domestic violence.
So we'd set up an arm of St Vincent de Paul that's still around today called Healthy Families. There I saw some of the saddest things I've ever seen.
Don't tell Robyn it can't be done, because she'll show you how it can. And she tells us how in her 60s she entered into an award-winning real estate career.
You just don't know how close you are to the other side of the mountain or the other side of the wall. And that was October, and I had 6 listings before Christmas.
Our next amazing lady today is an absolute dynamo. I cannot even begin to say what an inspiration she is to all of us here in the Ray White Collective. She is absolutely always drop dead gorgeous. She is a mother of 7, which is absolutely incredible. She has championed some of the biggest causes in Australia, including raising awareness of domestic violence, where she's been on a national board and forum. And I think very pertinent to mention today as well, on the 4th anniversary this month of the death of Hannah Clark, that it is an issue that is unfortunately still real and still growing and affecting 1 in 5 women. And unfortunately, the growth of female murders as well, as we've heard this week, has unfortunately been on the rise. That is something that Robyn has been extremely committed to, as well as empowering her daughters and women to be financially strong and financially independent. So Robyn, here you are, and you don't mind me saying this, but I absolutely love this. At the time of life when many women are happy to turn back the pedal, pick up the golf clubs and spend more time on the golf course, Robyn has the energy of a 30-year-old and the tenacity to succeed like no one I have ever seen. So Robyn, here you are in your, very proudly letting me announce, in your 6th decade. And tell me, what does International Women's Day represent and mean to you?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. I'm not normally allow myself to be so vulnerable, so here we go. International Women's Year means a lot to me in the day, and not only just for my 2 amazing daughters, but also for my 5 sons, because my 5 sons have been brought up with an iron woman's fist. And they would bow and scrape to me, and not that I would wish that to happen. I would only have to say one word. So to me, that is a legacy of 5 beautiful men that are the cooks in the house. They've got executive high positions, but they do their share of the work.
Robyn, can I just backtrack there a little bit? Because, you know, one of the big themes of International Women's Day is that our generation is carving a path for the next generation. We are looking at what happened to us when we grew up and absolutely making sure that our children and the next generation of women is going to be even stronger than the last. So you came from, to the outside world, a very privileged upbringing. You grew up with a very successful father, a beautiful mother. Everything seemed perfect. But realistically, behind the scenes in that generation, it was far from the truth. So tell us a little bit about your own upbringing and what it was like, even back then, for women to be taken seriously as wanting to have careers and having a future.
Well, I was brought up on Sydney Harbour, very, elitist, sort of to the outside world. Behind closed doors of our beautiful home at Rose Bay was hell. Absolutely nothing short of hell. I lived with a father. There's 5 of us, my mother and father. My father was a real illustration of a man that had come home from World War II and been totally undiagnosed, unthought of, just put out on the world, became a lawyer, became one of Sydney's most recognised criminal lawyers, but he had a mind that was scrambled, was historically in a year I could see these cycles forming where he would kick mum out of the bedroom. We would, as a family, be living on eggshells, and it was always around Christmas time. It was a classic. It was always around Christmas time. Unfortunately for me, I have always had this mouth that just never knew when to shut it up. Right from school days, Robyn would be such a good student if she'd only just listen. Robyn would be this, Robyn would be that. Well, my father didn't handle me and my attitude well at all. The other siblings were saying, trying to warn me to keep my mouth shut, but boarding school was the next best thing. So off I got shift because he couldn't handle me. Mum was at odds because she loved what I had to say. So I was sent off to a Dominican convent, and there my life blossomed. It was a gift, an absolute gift. The Dominican nuns were outstanding. My relationships, I learnt about relationships. I learned about family. Actually, it became normal from what I didn't realise was so goddamn unnormal. And we were just true Irish Catholics. So you said nothing. Your mouth was shut. You spoke when spoken to, and that's where I didn't work so well at.
So you were brought up and you were actually encouraged back then to go and get a nice job. So tell us a little bit about that, because women pursuing careers, that really was not quite acceptable.
No, and so I finished year 12 in the top 10% of New South Wales, so I was expected that I'd go to uni. So Dad said, yes, got the great career for you, pharmacy. Unbelievable for a mother. You can come back to it, probably not as soon as you want to, but you can come back to it. Something you can. So I went to New South Wales University, starting a pharmacy degree. The first year was straight science, chemistry, physics and maths. Well, the lawns of New South Wales Uni looked a whole lot better than those laboratories. So I scraped through the first year and the second year. I actually got honours in the second year of a few of the subjects, and then had to book an appointment with my father to ask him for permission if I could leave. It just wasn't working for me. And literally an appointment was made. He got out a file that had Robyn Ann Marnie on it, and we spoke about me leaving university. And he said, right, well, I've had serious thought about this, and how it's going to work is I've booked you into the Metropolitan Ladies Business College. And I've gone, what the hell is that? So it's a 12-month course where I was duly going to learn shorthand, bookkeeping and typing. And I knew there was no way out. I had to do it. So I came back to him in 6 months with the 12-month course finished. I'd got all my shorthand, everything. He said, right, now I've got a law firm that you will be a secretary in. So I had to rush. That was on a Thursday. I had to rush to get the Sydney Morning Herald on the Saturday, because you open it up and there was just jobs galore. And I got myself a job as a secretary to the advertising manager of Pix People, which was an absolutely sleazy magazine that was in the Women's Day stable. And I started working for this rowdy Scotsman, and that was quite unacceptable as far as my father was concerned. I then went on and sold Ford vehicles. He just couldn't understand that I would always be in this male environment, sort of wanting to do crazy things. But then eventually I went in the door of Broadway Grace Brothers, which is at that time was a big department store chain. They had 36 stores. They were eventually bought out by Myer. I got a job on the floor. Within 12 months, I was the buyer of all young fashion, travelling the world 3 times a year and going to Melbourne once a week. Then the problem I had was, when are you going to give up your career? When are you going to have children? It doesn't look like you're going to ever have children. So, you can't win.
You have seen many changes in the generations to where we are today, particularly with your children. So you did continue that. You met your beautiful husband and have extraordinarily had 7 children, which is a great credit to you. And tell us a little bit about that career. Were you able to, did you give up your career while you became a mum?
Well, yes, I did. I was 5 months pregnant with my eldest son before I was diagnosed I was pregnant, so it was a very short pregnancy. And I did leave, and in those days the expectation was that you'd be a good mother and stay at home with your children. I'd been offered a consultancy job with where I excelled in fashion was colour. I was not particularly great on design, but I could vision a department store or an area so it didn't look like some psychedelic problematic for a shopper. And so I was offered a consultancy job by a really big firm. But even my sisters said, that's just not what you need to do. You're going to have a baby. And then by the time I got strength to think that that's something I wanted to do, I'd lost all confidence because I'd had the baby and I was in that world of tennis on a Wednesday, things like that. And it just never came about until financial disaster came our way.
That was a turning point for you and you had to go back to work.
We'd moved to Queensland by this stage from Sydney, which again, I had to have an interview with my father as to why we were leaving and what this was a crazy one. What would it take for me to keep you here and to sort of park John, like the husband, my father, and I'll look after you, I'll house you, I'll do all that. And I said, no, not happening. Quickly, I skipped off to Queensland. So what happened is we had this amazing business. It's a beautiful story, really, if you want to look at it from the right side. But we had partners that there was 6 million missing in the business, and we were the stool pigeons, the last men standing. And so, of course, everything went cars, houses, all that sort of thing. And we had at that stage 4 children at private school, the Southport School. We had also a daughter at St Hilda's. So we had huge outlays. So fortunately, I married the complete opposite to my father, and we just sort of chipped in. I became aware of a company called Arbonne, which was a multi-level marketing company, and a girl sort of said, sell some cosmetics, and here we go. Well, within 6 months, I had the white Mercedes. I had a $14,000 a month income, and, things were looking good. I went to Sydney. I set up a team there. I went to Melbourne. I set up a team there. But then almost 2 years later, I just couldn't meet anybody, see anybody without thinking, how can you get involved with Arbonne? How can I sell you something? Hazley, you could work with me too. And it just drove me. I just had no life because I couldn't meet anybody. I couldn't do anything. And then at the same time, I got involved with, I felt so privileged, knowing there's so many underprivileged people. I got involved with St Vincent de Paul, just as a voluntary job. And again, I saw gaps in what they were offering. Families would come in, just absolutely devastated families, financially and emotionally, and they'd put them in front of a social worker and give them some advice and then send them home. And I said to one family I was working with, but how do they know what's going on at home? So the actual facts of this was there were 6 children, mother and father, who were both mentally challenged. They had their own difficulties, and they had, when I got to the house, they had 6 children in one bed, and they were all bedwetters. So we set up a arm of St Vincent de Paul that's still around today called Healthy Families, where people like me, just normal everyday people, would go out following what the social workers had to say and actually implement, get beds in and get things changed. And there I saw some of the saddest things I've ever seen.
And that's where your involvement has been as well, with raising awareness, the real awareness of domestic violence.
I sat on a Senate commission to scream about it, yell about it, do whatever I could to give funding to companies, organisations like St Vincent de Paul that have the infrastructure. They just need the funding.
In the midst of all of that, you are working for St Vincent de Paul and you've raised your beautiful children. They've all become very successful, and you have yet another turning point, and real estate. Tell us how you ended up in real estate.
Well, I went back to what I knew, which was retail, and David Jones in Queen's Plaza contacted me through Sydney because I've got people that know me still down there, and they needed some help in their design area over a Christmas period, get the figures up, get the KPIs matched, all that sort of thing. 7 years later, I was still there doing other roles, but significantly under the umbrella of David Jones. And one day we were up in Noosa, and I'm just such a strong-willed person. I reviewed where I felt I sat with the company that had since been taken over by Woolworths South Africa, and our loyalties and our thoughts didn't align. So I went back at 7:45 on the Monday morning and gave my resignation. And they said, no, we can't take that. You're on a 3-month, whatever you've got to do. And the CEO from Sydney, from Melbourne rang, and all sorts of things happened. I said, well, the only thing I know is that by 5 o'clock on Tuesday, I need to be released of my contract with you, or you'll hear from my lawyers. I'm out. You don't really need me here anymore because I've only got bad things to say. So, yes, they did release me. And that was on a Tuesday, and then on the following Monday or Tuesday, one of my sons, because they, anything they say, I would trust them with, every breath in their body, said, I'm going to have a coffee with a fellow that I know, and I really like him a lot. I've worked with him in real estate, as in selling his house, but they'd become friends, Brandon Wortley. And I said, and I didn't even go into what really it was. I just said, what do I need to wear? And he said, oh, for God's sake, Mum, it's a coffee. So Brandon and I met, and he had this 45 minutes of telling me this amazing life of real estate. And I just stopped and I said, Brandon, I don't know the name of the street behind me. I just don't. Real estate, some people, real estate's something that it's in your blood. It's not in mine. And anyway, I then met with Hazley and thought, I remember coming across after being at the New Farm office, thinking, I've had such shit interactions with agents to this point in my life, like really poorly treated. Maybe I could change this in my own little world. Maybe I'll give this a try. Yeah, change, like it. I can do this. So there we came.
The thing that is absolutely extraordinary about Robyn, when you listen to Robyn's story, Robyn has been fearless and determined. And from a very early age, if someone says you can't, she says, just watch me, I can. And to Robyn's credit, here she is with no experience, not even knowing the streets. And
I did a lot of drive-bys.
And has actually made premier property not once but twice in the 3 short years that she's been with the company, which is absolutely extraordinary. And, I think also, Robyn, it's important to share that you did have one moment where, real estate, as we know, is not always smooth sailing. The winds change, and that can affect our business. And you did have that moment that you shared with me. Tell me a little bit about that and how things have changed since that moment.
Yeah, well, it actually happened twice. I had a meeting one October, my first October with Hazy, and I said, I'm on seek.com, Hazy, just letting you know. This isn't going to work. I just couldn't work out. I didn't realise how multi-layered real estate is. It's one thing to get the listing. I'm not telling any of you anything. It's another thing to sell the damn thing, and then all the journey in between. And Hazley, with words of wisdom, said, you just don't know what side of the mountain, how close you are to the other side of the mountain or the other side of the wall. And that was October, and I had 6 listings before Christmas. I just didn't know the next day, and the next day things were coming. But then I had another one. The market changed in 22. I had 2 weddings. 2 of my children got married. My eye was off the ball. And then I realised it was all my fault. I had not done what's required, and the consistency that's required in this business is like none other. And once you own up to something and you're prepared to correct it, that's what I'm trying to do now.
Absolutely extraordinary. And Robyn, there are so many beautiful women here today from all different ages, all different walks of life. As a mum and as an incredible, successful career woman, what would be the one thing that you would like to impart as your piece of advice to everyone today?
Well, I've got it here in words, and I don't think I can better Constance Markovic. I don't know whether you've heard of her. She's a Sinn Féin politician, suffragette and socialist. And in December of 1918, she said these following words: the better ideal for women who, whether they like it or not, are living in a workaday world would be, if you want to walk around Ireland or any other country, dress suitably in short skirts and strong boots, leave your jewels and gold wands in the bank and buy a revolver. Don't trust your feminine charm and your capacity for getting on the soft side of men, but take up your responsibilities and be prepared to go your own way, depending for your safety on your own courage, your own truth, and your own common sense, and not on the problematic chivalry of the men who may meet you on the way.
What a wonderful quote. Thank you so much, Robyn.